My name is, first of all, Kathy Costanzo, and I'm the Executive Director of the Center for Public Representation.
My name is Michael Kendrick, and I work with the Center for Public Representation. That's a good question, because it's quite possible to have assumptions that are like a set of handcuffs. They kind of hold you back. And then there are assumptions that are life-giving because they open up life possibilities. So this is what some people just call the exploring how to imagine better so that you can get to better. And it's not as easy as it sounds. There is a sort of tendency to not really think about better and to imagine it. And of course, how could you get to better if you can't imagine it? So people may, if you like, circle around where they're at the moment because they can't break out of that. They can't move from where they are now to something better. So it's good to support people sort of regularly to continue to imagine better, to go beyond where they are today. And of course, people can develop new habits in that regard and be more self-reliant. But if they aren't at the outset, then you can be helpful by simply looking a couple of steps ahead with people and say, well, what would be a few steps ahead? What would it look like? What would it take you to get there? So that they begin to get more concrete about getting from here to there, and the steps that might be involved in doing it. Sort of, like a lot of problems, once you break it out into little pieces, you can kind of move from one end to the problem to the finish of it, because you kind of solved all the obstacles along the way. But again, that's very hard to do it in your own head. That's why anybody with external social support is likely to do better with imagining better. If they rely solely on themselves, they're kind of putting themselves in handcuffs. But if you've got people around you who are out of the starting gate before you are, they can kind of pull you into new directions that you wouldn't have gone on by yourself. So people that are socially isolated are extremely vulnerable in this regard because they have nobody to kind of stimulate them and pull them in a new direction. So having a variety of people in your life that sort of want to see good things happen for and with you creates a kind of momentum. And this is why social isolation is such a hazard, that when you have nobody helping you live, everything is harder. So, and of course what happens to people with disabilities, they may have very few people in their life that are, if you like, helping open up the doors and windows to life's possibilities. So what we've learned really over the last 50 years is different strategies for bringing people into people's lives. So they've got all kinds of stimulus and all kinds of support and all kinds of good advice and technical help because most of us do. And it's not us doing everything, it's us benefiting hugely by all the other people that are helping us out. And so whenever you see people that are socially isolated, they're going to have a hard time. And when you have people that already have a lot of people in their life, even if those people let them down from time to time, I mean, no big deal. You get a chance to let them down and reciprocate. But you've got people in your life. And everything is easier when you've got people in your life. They don't have to be perfect. It's the social isolation that is the hardest burden really for people because they have to rely entirely on themselves. And that's inhuman. We do better doing things with and around other people.
I can talk about one of the first people that we helped in Massachusetts to have his rights restored. His name is Corey, and Corey's mom and dad became his guardian when he was co-guardians when he was 18. They were advised by the school to do it. They were advised by his doctor to do it. And they also felt concerned. Corey has autism and some mental health issues, and so they were concerned about, whether he was mature enough to make decisions for himself, and they were constantly being reinforced with the message that, to be caring parents, this was the step to take. So I think that they made that decision. They didn't make it lightly, and felt some degree of reluctance, but also felt that they didn't have an alternative at the time. And they became familiar with what supported decision-making was, so that it began a series of long conversations with them about how it might work, what it might look like, and with Corey about that as well. I mean, one of the things that was really true is, Corey's mom is this fantastic advocate, and she, as a parent of, any child, you always want to be vigilant and make sure your children are okay, and that's part of the deal as a parent. And I think for parents of people with disabilities, it's even a more heightened sense of responsibility that people feel they have, and that sense of wanting to protect and take care is obviously a deep conditioning and quite understandable. And so, Corey was really a passive participant in his own life, to the extent he was really participating. If you asked him what mattered to him, he'd say he didn't know. If you asked him what he wanted, I don't know. I mean, he wanted to play video games and have more money. I mean, those were two interests of his, but with the exception of those two things, he didn't say much. And, anyway, long story short, after many months, the family really started to explore supported decision-making, what it would look like. For Corey, we had a series of meetings, many, many meetings. So the other thing I would say is that this is not necessarily a quick, let's fill out a form and we've got it covered. People need to give some thought to this about the things. So we spend time with Corey, like, what are the areas in your life you feel you need some help with? And then his mom would say, you also need help with this. And we'd say, Corey, what do you think about that? Do you want help in those areas, or is that just your mom wanting to help you in those areas? And he would laugh. And, over a series of conversations, he was really able to take greater agency and to speak up and to, even think about what might else could be realistic for him. So since we were able to get his guardianship eliminated by a court, and he was the first person in Massachusetts for whom that happened, in order to allow him to practice and use supported decision-making, he decided who his supporters were going to be. He didn't want the same amount of help from all of them. He was very clear he didn't want to talk to his mother about relationships. That was a better thing to talk to his sister about, maybe his dad, maybe. And he's now working. He's living out of his family's home. He continues to have a very close and loving relationship with his family. I think his mom is ecstatic, that this whole, process has evolved in such a way that all of this is possible, and, grateful that she finally found an alternative that made a lot of sense in Corey's life. So I think he's a different person. He can look you in the eye, he can have a conversation, he can say very clearly what it is that matters to him and what he wants in his life. And that wasn't the case when we started talking to him.